Hello everyone and welcome to the review. My name's Janae and this is WIP and Chat Wednesday. Stay tuned. Before we get started with the WIP, I want to thank everyone that left a comment last week in regards to which WIP I should start. And guess what? We're going to be doing Tinkerbell. So thank you so much for all your guys' input. That's greatly appreciated. Also, tonight's subject. So I had a few people reach out to me via email and messenger asking me to go ahead and do the continuation of my son's story, which was autism awareness. So I thought about it and I decided to go ahead and do that continuation for all of you. So while we're discussing this continuation of my son's story, I'm going to be asking you 3 questions. One will be your main question and 2 bonus questions. Don't forget to go down below in the comments and leave me your answers. That way you're going to put yourself into that free giveaway again and again and again. So don't forget to do that. Also, again, thank you for those that have reached out to me and asked me to go ahead with this video. I do appreciate that. So, without further ado, let's jump into the WIP Tinkerbell. So before we get started into the topic of autism, your first main question. If you were going on vacation, do you bring your diamond painting project with you? So don't forget to put that down below in the comments. And again, that will get you registered for those free giveaways. So, what is autism? Autism or autism spectrum disorder, also known as ASD, is a developmental disorder that affects communication and social behavior. Autism can be diagnosed at any age, and it is known to appear in the first 2 years of life. Autism is known as a spectrum disorder because there is a wide variation in the types and severities of the symptoms that people experience. ASD affects all ethnic, racial, and economical groups. There are no boundaries. So what causes autistic spectrum disorder? There are no true causes at this time. However, researchers suggest that genetics can act together with influences from the environment to affect development in ways that lead to ASD. Here are a few risk factors that can contribute to autism. Now remember, this is speculation. This is not true known causes. 1. Genetics or hereditary. 2. Older aging parents, usually over the age of 35. 3. ASD tends to occur often in people who have certain genetic or chromosome deficiencies, such as Down syndrome, Fragile X syndrome, and Rex syndrome. 4. Premature birth or low birth weight. 5. Multiple births, twins, triplets, and quadruplets. 6. Environmental, exposure to heavy metals and toxins. 7. Mother's medical condition during pregnancy, obesity, and diabetes. So before we go any further, we're going to ask your first bonus question. If you were stranded on an island, what would be the one thing that you would miss the most? Okay, so let's continue. Before 2013, autism was its own spectrum. However, in 2013, autism spectrum was combined with the following related conditions: Asperger's syndrome and pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified. In other words, PDD-NOS. Now, there are two other conditions that are related and are within the umbrella of the spectrum. However, I don't know enough about those two, so we're just going to bypass them altogether. So remember that autism is a vast spectrum. There is so much that can actually be tagged into the autistic spectrum disorder. So we're going to give you just a little bit of history. Autism was first recognized in 1940. There were no records kept, no diagnosis was recorded until 1990s. You heard correctly. No records of diagnosis, no case studies were kept from 1940 to the 1990s. That's 50 years of unkept records. That is amazing. Due to the 50-year gap, it would appear that autism is on the rise. Researchers are not 100% sure if, in fact, autism is actually on the rise, or is it due to the lack of recording known cases. That's surprising to me. In fact, I'm shocked to learn that this particular disorder has been recognized in the 1940s, and yet we're in 2019 and we are struggling to catch up with the number of people that have been affected by autism since that time. So when I hear people talk about there's this huge rise of autism within society, I always think back about how many people from the 1940s on up until 1990s were misdiagnosed or basically swept under the carpet. I mean, I hate to use that term, but that's what it feels like, because there's no way that anyone can suggest that autism did not exist during the time that it was recognized until 1990, because there are so many people out there that have autism, and there's got to be an answer to that. So here are some statistics from the CDC in regards to autism spectrum disorder. About 1 in 59 children have been identified with autistic spectrum disorder, according to estimates from CDC's Autism and Developmental Disability Monitoring, or ADDM network. 2. ASD is reported to occur in all racial, ethnical, and economical groups. 3. ASD is about 4 times more common among boys than among girls. 4. Studies in Asia, Europe, and North America have identified individuals with ASD with an average percent between 1 and 2%. And about 1 in 6 children in the United States had a developmental disability from 2006 to 2008, ranging from mild disabilities such as speech and language to severe developmental disabilities such as cerebral palsy and autism. Now, this particular statistic was done in 2017. In 2019, the the 1 in 59 went to 1 in 68. That is a lot. So we're going to go ahead and pause and ask your second bonus question. Name 2 of your pet peeves. What 2 pet peeves do you have? So those are your second. So that is your second bonus question. And then we'll summarize those questions at the end. So if you've reached this point of the video, thank you so much. What I'm going to do now is explain my son's condition and how we feel caused his autism. So remember in the beginning we were talking about risk factors, as well as that there are actually no known causes for autism. So there are high risk contributing factors that scientists and researchers believe are linked to autism. In my son's case, he fits into 4 of these categories. So we're going to break them down really quick. First category that he fits into is genetics. Is it hereditary in his family? Yes. My son's father, my ex-husband, had a brother that had 3 children. His middle son was severely autistic. Now, at the time, they didn't believe that it was hereditary within their family. However, once they did some research into their family tree, they did find that autism, in fact, did run in their family. Now, my son's cousin was born 3 years before my oldest boy was born. So at that time, we didn't feel that it was a huge risk for any of the other children within that family. And that's one of the contributing factors to my son. The other contributing factor would be the chromosome deficiency, and that comes from me. I am what they call a Turner. I have Turner syndrome. Turner syndrome is a condition that affects women only, and I minus an X chromosome. So we believe that there is a possibility that my Turner syndrome could also be a contributing factor to my son. The next contributing factor would be mother's medical condition during pregnancy. I had gestational diabetes in both my pregnancies. My first pregnancy was controlled by diet, but unfortunately in my second pregnancy, the diabetes went completely out of control, and the way that we can get that diabetes under control was to take insulin. Now, that was not an easy decision for me to make, but I will tell you this. The risks of me not taking insulin would have been far more dangerous for my son than it would have if I took it. So that's why I decided to take the insulin. And the other contributing factor is also categorized as the mother's medical condition, and that is I am AB negative. So I have Rh negative blood factor. Now, what that means during your pregnancy is that you have to have a Rogan shot to balance out the negative blood factor to positive, to keep that child's blood factor to positive. They don't know the risks of taking Rogan, although they do say that it does not have any, that it doesn't have any link to autism. So those are the 4 contributing factors in regards to my son's case. Now, my son is classified as a high-functioning autistic Asperger. That means that you can actually sit down and have a conversation with him. He does have a bit of a speech impairment, but he does have good speech and he has eye contact. The thing about my son is that he can work a job, he can live on his own, he can do basically anything and everything a normal person can do, but he cannot multitask. He cannot be taken away from something that he was working on without completing it. That is one of his biggest hiccups. Also, he has tendencies of self-inflicted injuries, meaning that when he gets frustrated, he causes injury to himself. That is a typical that's a typical autistic patient. Now, my son, unfortunately, fit in the category of what I consider sweeping under the carpet. He was first noticed to have autistic tendencies at age 3. However, I felt that he had symptoms and signs far earlier than that. And when I would bring that to his doctor's attention, I was constantly told, don't compare your 2 boys, because one child is going to progress and develop a lot faster than the other. Well, because I felt that he was his doctor, he knew best, and he wouldn't mislead me. But as the years went by, I realized we need a second opinion. And that's when everything started falling into place. But then all of a sudden the ball was dropped again when he was evaluated at 3, and they said, well, he is what we call borderline autistic. Now, to me, I'm asking, well, what is borderline autistic? I mean, either he's autistic or he's not. So basically, what ultimately happens is that when the diagnosis isn't clear, then you don't get the support that you need for that child. So basically, David was put into a Head Start program, which did help him a lot, but he still needed more support. He needed to have speech therapy. He needed motor skills therapy. And that was basically left for the parents, for me and my ex-husband, to financially take care of. And we did, but it's just the point that back in the early 1990s, they still didn't have enough information to support and fully diagnose some of these autistic children that were what you would consider high functioning. So another thing that I was going to bring up, and this is one of the things that I'm very passionate about when it comes to this subject, In the autistic community, and there are lots of advocates even outside of the community, has raised question in regards to children's vaccinations. Now, there was an article on the CDC website that went into great depth over this. This claim was done, I'm just getting my notes, sorry. This claim was done back in the 1990s, and in 1995, a group of British researchers published a study. This study was called Lancet study, which was a study for bowel disease after a child had received an MMR vaccination. One of the main researchers was a gastroenterologist. Now, he furthered the study by pushing links between the vaccination and the bowel disease by speculating that persistent infection with vaccination viruses causes disruption in the intestinal tissue that in turn led to bowel disease and neurological disease. So in 1998, the main researcher, along with 12 co-authors, published a study or case study in the Lancet, claiming that they found evidence in many of the 12 cases that they'd studied that the measles virus in the digestive system of children who had exhibited autism symptoms after the MMR vaccination. Though in the paper they stated that they could not demonstrate a causal relationship between MMR vaccination and autism, this particular doctor suggested in a video release to coincide with the paper's publication that a causal relationship existed between MMR and autism. He then recommended that the combination of MMR vaccine be suspended in favor of single antigen vaccinations given separately over time. So basically what this researcher was suggesting is that the MMR vaccination was in fact linked to one of the possibility causes of autism. So ultimately what happened is the press got the information from this research and they covered it over the news. This caused widely spread frightened parents to begin to delay and completely refuse to vaccinate their children. Not only did this happen in Britain, it also happened in the United States. So over the next 12 years, the possibility of the link between MMR and autism was studied extensively. There was no evidence to suggest that this particular doctor's findings were in fact true. In 2004, Dr. Richard Horton of The Lancet wrote that this particular researcher should have revealed to the journal that he had been paid by attorneys seeking to file lawsuits against vaccine manufacturers. In a television interview, Horton claimed that the researchers were factually false most of the co-authors of the study retracted the interpretation of the paper, and in 2010, The Lancet formally retracted the paper itself. 3 months after the retraction, in May 2010, Britain's General Medical Council banned that particular researcher from practicing medicine in Britain, stating that he showed callous disregard for children in the course of his research. The council also cited previously uncovered information about the extent in which that researcher was funded by lawyers hoping to sue vaccine manufacturers on the behalf of patients and their parents with autism. On January 6, 2011, the BMJ published a report by Brian Deer, a British journalist who had previously reported on flaws in that researcher's work. For this new report, Deer spoke with the patients and the parents of the patients from that particular research study and found evidence that that researcher committed research fraud by falsifying data about children's conditions. Now, the report goes on and on about what occurred during that time, but there's a reason why I bring this up. And again, this has a lot to do with the fact that this subject, the subject of vaccinations causing autism, still is very much alive. And there are tons of research, tons of case studies, and a lot of reporting in regards to this particular study that completely states that there is no link whatsoever to any type of vaccination. So that, to me, that's an incredible story, and I really felt it was necessary to bring that out. So everyone, if you've reached this point of the video, I truly appreciate that you stuck around to listen to this part of the video. It's so important to fully understand some of this information in regards to being misled, and that's why I'm so passionate about autism awareness. So by saying that, we're going to go ahead and end the video. I hope that you enjoyed this information. If you have any questions whatsoever, please let me know down below in the comments. I will have my email down there as well, so if you'd like to email me, please do so, and I can provide you with all the information that you need. If you suspect that your child or your grandchild or your niece or nephew or any child may have signs of autism, please reach out and have that child evaluated. The quicker the child can be evaluated, the quicker the treatment can be done to help that child live a happy, healthy, normal life. So by saying that, if you like the video, give it that thumbs up. I greatly appreciate it. And if you didn't like the video, I totally understand. But if you can let me know what you didn't like about the video down below in the comments, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, if you're new to the channel, you like what you see, you like what you heard, please hit that subscribe button. I would love to have you join the family. But don't forget to hit the bell. The bell will indicate when I've uploaded my next video. So by saying that, we're going to summarize those questions for you. Don't forget to go ahead and go down to the comments and leave those answers for me. And the first and your main question was, if you were going on vacation, do you bring a diamond painting with you on your trip? Your first bonus question was, if you were stranded on an island, what would be the one thing that you missed the most? And your second bonus question was, what are 2 of your pet peeves? I look forward to seeing those answers. And again, if you want to reach out to me and get some more information about autism, please email me or leave those comments down below, and I will definitely get back to you as quickly as possible. So by saying that, if this is morning for you, have a very pleasant morning. If this is afternoon for you, have an excellent rest of your afternoon. And if this is evening for you, have a very relaxing evening. Again, my name's Janae, and thank you so much for spending some time with me tonight on the review. We'll talk again real soon.